DNC election fraud lawyers, all of our witnesses are being murdered. Lawyers involved in a lawsuit against the DNC for rigging the 2016 presidential election claim that witnesses due to testify against the Democratic Party are being murdered. According to attorney Elizabeth Beck, the legal team representing plaintiffs suing the Democratic National Committee now fear for their lives in the wake of the murder of DNC whistleblower Seth Rich. WND.com reports, "We filed the motion because we do feel that not only us but our staff and the plaintiffs are deserving of a motion," attorney Elizabeth Beck, who is litigating the case, told WND, "but our court system does not have the resources to do so." She continued, "The court, in denying our motion for protection, stated in its order that the Federal Marshal's Service doesn't have enough resources to devote that amount of protection." A trove of DNC emails made public by WikiLeaks throughout the 2016 presidential election revealed top DNC officials privately conspiring to undermine candidate Bernie Sanders' campaign, ultimately resulting in Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigning from her post as DNC chairwoman in July of 2016. Jared Beck and Elizabeth Lee Beck filed a class action lawsuit against Wasserman Schultz and the Democratic National Committee last summer, charging that the DNC committed, quote, fraud in favoring Clinton over Sanders during the Democratic Party primaries. The Becks are seeking damages for Democratic Party donors and voters. They're demanding the party repay individuals and Sanders supporters who were duped by the party's 2016 primary and alleging misappropriation of funds. Two potential witnesses in my case both died. On June 13th, the Becks filed the motion for order of protection in the U.S. District Court of Florida. They asked Judge Zlock to provide court protection to the plaintiffs, their counsel and their families, as well as all of the witnesses in the DNC fraud lawsuit. In support of the motion, they cited the unusual deaths of Seth Rich, DNC lawsuit process server, Sean Lucas, and the late Miami federal prosecutor, Barrington Whisenant. It's unclear what roles, if any at all, Rich or Whisenant have played in the DNC case. Beck also cited threats and bizarre phone calls the plaintiffs and counsel say they've received. Rich, 27, was a DNC voter expansion data director for 2 years and had accepted a position with Hillary Clinton's campaign. He was murdered in Washington, D.C. on July 10, 2016, near his apartment in an affluent neighborhood. Rich was shot twice in the back, and his wallet, credit cards, watch, and phone were left in his possession. The Metropolitan Police Department has described it as a botched robbery. Private investigators, however, have claimed there is evidence Rich was the source WikiLeaks used to obtain thousands of DNC emails released on the eve of the party's presidential nominating convention last July. The emails indicating the party was manipulating the primary race in favor of Clinton led to Wasserman Schultz's resignation. "We believe Mr. Rich might have been a potential witness in this case," Jared Beck said in a video announcing the protection request. Jared Beck also tweeted on May 29th, "If hashtag DNC fraud lawsuit proceeds, DNC employee Seth Rich would have been potential witness. One reason I'm so concerned, what happened to him? Jared Beck's tweet. If hashtag DNC fraud lawsuit proceeds, DNC employee Seth Rich would have been potential witness. One reason why I'm so concerned, what happened to him? Less than a month after Rich was murdered, attorney Sean Lucas, 38, was found dead in his bathroom. Lucas served the DNC with the lawsuit in early July of 2016. According to Heavy, the Office of Chief Medical Examiner of Washington, D.C., said in November of 2016 that Lucas' August 2nd death was accidental and was caused by the, quote, combined adverse effects of fentanyl, a synthetic opioid pain medication, cyclobenzaprine, a muscle relaxant, and mitragynine, better known as Kraton. Rich and Lucas are both on WND's list of 33 people associated with the Clintons who have died mysterious and often violent deaths. Barranton Wissenant Jr., 38, was a federal prosecutor who handled mostly immigration-related cases. He was found dead last month in Hollywood, Florida, which is in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district. Police say he might have died as a result of a possible gunshot wound to the head or other type of trauma. Beck refused to speculate on whether any of the deaths might have been politically motivated murders, but she said the timing is suspicious, to say the least, right? Rich was a potential witness in my case, she said. All I'm saying is 2 potential witnesses. In my case, Sean Lucas was my process server. They both died. Why they died, how they died, I don't know. Mr. Lucas was about to provide evidence to the court, in this case, on service of process, when he very suddenly passed away, and suspiciously, I would say. Seth Rich, he was an employee of the DNC, and he was murdered. Nothing was taken from him. They first said it was a botched robbery, but nothing was taken from him. You can ask anybody that grew up in a large urban area. I've gotten robbed. They usually take something. Freaky calls, harassment, and tampering. Meanwhile, Beck and her employees have been receiving freaky, quote, calls, she told WND. My co-counsel, Colin O'Brien, all the time he's been getting emails and phone calls from anonymous people, causing a lot of stress on him and his family, she said. Anonymous people are calling up Colin, talking about Mr. Wissenant. It's not a call for information. It's very freaky. These callers sound angry, ranting, talking about how they don't like lawyers, and they mention Barranton Wissenant. Elizabeth Lee Beck, our co-counsel, Colin O'Brien, now getting anonymous calls talking about Colin's family and how federal prosecutor hashtag Barranton Wissenant washed up dead on Hollywood Beach, same county as Colin. We are sitting ducks. One of the plaintiffs, Angela Monson, claims in an affidavit to have awakened to her porch door open, and both of her computers had been moved and showed evidence of tampering. Beck said one of her staffers received a strange visit from an individual who asked for her by name. The person left some Democratic Party campaign literature for her, despite the fact that she is not a Democrat and there are no elections currently taking place in Florida. Because of those instances, we feel it was incumbent on us to bring this to the court's attention, Beck said. On June 1st, the Becks filed a motion in court claiming they received a voice-modulated phone call from a number matching Debbie Wasserman Schultz's office. We get this call about 2 weeks ago. I don't know who it was. They were using a voice-changing technology, Beck told WMD. The person who answered the call couldn't even tell if the person was a man or a woman. They were trying to find out information about the lawsuit. This number came up. I took a screenshot of it. I filed it in court. If you Google the number is to defendant Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz's local Aventura office. Wasserman Schultz and the DNC's defense counsel filed a response to the Beck submission stating that the Congresswoman and her staff had no knowledge of any such call being made, nor was any such call authorized. The document also states that the office in question had been undergoing repairs for several months. Really? Really? How convenient. Yeah, okay. And it so happened to tie to that because they were having repairs? Are you kidding me? DNC lawsuit. If you lie to somebody, steal from them, that's a crime. Current DNC chairman and former Secretary of Labor Tom Perez, while campaigning to become DNC chairman, admitted in February that the Democratic primaries were rigged in favor of Democratic Party nominee Hillary Clinton. He later claimed he misspoke because he was threatened, right? The lawsuit is on behalf of 3 groups of people. One of the groups is folks that donated to the campaign of Bernie Sanders. The second group are people that donated funds to the DNC. The third group is the group of registered Democrats, Beck explained. Defending the tactics the party used last year during an April 25th hearing, DNC lawyers explained before Judge William J. Locke that the party has a right to select candidates through backroom, quote, deals. In other words, they had it all rigged for Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, people were donating to Bernie Sanders and she chewed up the money. That's why they're asking for the money back also. We could have voluntarily decided that, look, we're going to go into back rooms like they used to and smoke cigars and pick the candidate that way. DNC attorney Bruce Spiva argued during the hearing that's not the way it was done, but they could have, and that would have also been their right, and it would drag the court well into party politics, internal party politics to answer those questions. And we all know that was the case, and that's how they did it. Article 4, Section 5 of the DNC Charter states the chairperson shall exercise impartiality and even-handedness between the presidential candidates and campaigns. The chairperson shall be responsible for ensuring that the national officers and staff of the Democratic National Committee maintain impartiality and even-handedness during the Democratic Party presidential nominating process. Misleading constituents and donors is fraud, Beck charged. This was a revelation to the voters to have that said openly. The Democratic National Committee's owner charter said that it will run the races in a fair and even-handed manner. She said, Chairwoman Wasserman Schultz said on national TV that they are not biased. Are you kidding me? That witch is we're gonna take that witch's word, right? So you have it straight from the horse's mouth. You have it in black and white on a piece of paper, yeah, which you can take that and you know what? I guess none of that means anything. You're damn right it doesn't. The Democratic Party made a statement in absolute terms that they were running a fair primary. Let's not make... And it looks like that hadn't been the case, really. They would probably disagree that choosing a candidate in a backroom deal is the equivalent to rigging. I am sure there are many voters that would disagree. Surely they would disagree. Of course it was rigged in favor of that witch, Hillary. And look at the witch she has working for her. Wasserman Schultz. Beck continued, the lawsuit is based on DNC fraud. The concept of fraud is very, very old. It's older than our Constitution. It goes back centuries. And it basically says if you lie to someone and you steal from them, that's a crime. At least you can be sure of them. While Beck has been inundated with thousands of phone calls from Americans inquiring about the case since her firm filed suit, the mainstream media have not reported on the case at all. Why? Because it doesn't fit their narrative. They wanted Hillary in, and they're all owned by George Soros. The media are deliberately ignoring the suit. Really? Beck argued because news organizations like CNN and the New York Times are unabashedly an apparatus of the Democratic Party and the Clintons. They are not covering this story because they were really quite possibly a part of the apparatus that tried to propel Secretary Clinton into office. Instead of just reporting, they seem to have been really invested in the outcome. Really invested, she said. No kidding. We're all hip to that. How do I know that they are invested? Beck continued. Because the New York Times interviewed me over a lawsuit in which President Trump was the adverse party, and they were all over that story. And then when I started contacting the reporter, Michael Barbaro, my contact at the New York Times, to cover the lawsuit against the DNC, he basically lost his head and blocked me on Twitter. Fragile New York Times temperaments, they can't handle it. Obviously, it's a topic that they really don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Of course not. Of course not. So, like, they get rid of their witnesses in the investigation, but they're going to go down anyway. There's just too much proof. You know what? It's going to be an SHTF situation for the DNC. It already started. But you know that they're corrupt to the core. Look at that. Look at Debbie Wasserman, first of all. Really? You don't know that woman is corrupt from the get-go? And Clinton is the main head honcho there? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.